Next, let's move on to squats. Squat, I say knee dominant. That's because there's a lot of bending in the knees, but you really want to focus on the hips going back. Imagine that you have a seat behind you and you're going to sit back, tap, and then stand up. The number one fault I see is what I call elevator squat. They stand, they go straight down, and their knees go very far forward, even probably more so than that. They do like this. And they're like, my knees hurt. Well, it's like, yeah, because your knees are doing all the work. Those are a special type of squat that can be taught, what's called a sissy squat, where it's all in the knees, but that's very advanced. What we want to focus for most people is this sitting back onto a chair and standing up. Let's go through the difficulties. For explorers, from a seated position or lying down, you're going to work on leg extensions. So I'm going to sit nice and tall, and I might do one at a time. Or if you can, hold back and do 2 leg extensions. Still going to work the front large part of the muscles. It's a great way to just get started. Adventurers, have that stable surface. You can use a sink or maybe a pole or something, and you're going to work on holding on to something that's going to be nice and stable, and then just sitting back as far as feels comfortable and standing up. Now you may be going so far back that if you let go, you would fall. That's okay as long as you feel stable. What you're doing is you're working your hip flexibility and the muscles in your legs. Once that is more developed, you'll get to the point where you can also improve your ankle flexibility so that you can do it without the extra support. Heroes, sometimes we'll do bodyweight squats, but a couple ways that we can add difficulty to this is we'll do first a sumo squat. So that's going to be a weight hanging between the legs, both arms on. We're going to still sit back and then stand up. From there, we go to goblet squats. The weight's now going to be higher. It's going to challenge the balance more and the core more, making it a bit harder. And then, of course, eventually, we can even do overhead, which is very hard on the shoulder mobility. So, lots of ways to make it harder or easier. Find the level that is right for you. After we worked on our sitting back, once you get in that, a couple things to note. If that feels good, your next thing to look for is, are you leaning too far forward? Sometimes I'll see people doing this. They'll really lean, bend over and squat. The kind of rule of thumb is the angle of my body should be close to the angle of my shins. See, as I sit back, like I'm going to sit back on this chair, there's a slight angle on my shins and a slight angle on my body. I'm not bent way far forward, and I'm not straight up and down. Even after you've gotten getting that lean into a good, even balance, next thing to watch for is your knees. You almost want to be, people oh, should I have my feet wide? Should I have them narrow? It's really going to depend on how your hips are developed. So it's really a personal preference. Most of the time, feet are going to be about hip width, maybe a little bit wider, so you feel nice and grounded. Wherever your direction your toes are pointed, your knees are going to go in that same direction. So if you do wide, like a horse stance is what would it be called, or a sumo squat, you just want to make sure your knees are also going out wide. What can happen is people will do this wide feet pointing up, but their knees go straight. And when the knees go in, it puts a lot of stress on that inner knee joint. No bueno. So, general rule of thumb is hips go back, knees are in line with toes, and I like to look at a 45-degree angle with my eyes to prevent me from trying to be flat or falling down. Think about 45 degrees with the eyes. There's your squat.